Climate change remains our generation's most prevalent and pressing crisis, and if not addressed, a perpetually intensifying catastrophe for centuries to come. This reality does not surprise me, living along Rhode Island's southern coast, or any of the millions of young people living along the eastern seaboard. In 2010, our town of Westerly weathered Superstorm Sandy and rebuilt our beaches and coastal infrastructure. Yet if climate change continues to spiral, those heightened weather events will become a much too everyday reality. Since the Industrial Revolution, rising carbon emissions have accentuated the greenhouse effect, aggravating glacier ice melting and sea level rise through another process dubbed a feedback. The feedback occurs as the glacier begins to melt and less surface area reflects the heat, causing the ocean to absorb more direct heat and carbon, further warming the water and melting more ice. This feedback loop will lead to rising sea levels, displacing millions of people along our coastlines, and continuing to melt the glaciers even without further carbon emissions. Cutting greenhouse gas emissions down to pre-industrial levels pursues the root cause of human-induced climate change. However, cutting our current emissions will not be enough to address the 2 centuries of carbon emissions and climate disruption. Lingering carbon emissions since the beginning of the industrial era continue to perpetuate climate feedback loops through entropy and the second law of thermodynamics. The positively reinforcing feedback continues to increase in heat disorganization, referred to as entropy, forever, unless we remove heat from those systems and carbon from the atmosphere. Yet the reversal of any feedback loop is not absolute, because a tipping point may be reached in which the feedback becomes immune to human intervention. Therefore, carbon dioxide must remain a complementary tool to achieve our goal of preventing climate change and mitigating its current impacts by removing existing carbon dioxide through carbon capture and removal technology. Even with cutting greenhouse gas emissions dramatically and implementing carbon dioxide capture and removal, geoengineering is essential in the offensive against climate change. As current political and social trends suggest, we may not transition to an electricity-based economy or enact carbon removal initiatives in time. So we must also engage in geoengineering with stratospheric aerosol injections. They act as a sort of painkiller, reflecting a small percentage of the sun's energy, yet would significantly prevent temperature increases, slowing down climate change impacts and minimizing the enhancing effects of a feedback. This painkiller would address the symptoms of climate change, giving us more time to transition and develop technologies to cut emissions, the source of climate pain. Our transition to renewable energy will counteract climate change and introduce cheaper and more efficient energy sources. The United States consumes 97.7 quads of energy in a fossil fuel-based economy, which would drop to 40 quads in an electrical renewable energy-based economy, enabling us to continue our economic growth while saving the planet. From my own shores, we can see one of the most promising transitions to renewable energy that remains a progressive model for the future, the Block Island Windmill Farm. We need to act to save our planet and maintain our coasts. As carbon removal would address our past emissions, cutting greenhouse gases today would end the trend, and geoengineering gives us enough time to achieve such reductions. Together, we must ensure Earth remains a healthy and habitable home for all with diverse strategies and backgrounds to end the crisis that poses an existential threat to our livelihoods and posterity. Thank you.